Hi everyone, welcome to Type Talks. Today we have all 4 IP types, and I'll let them introduce themselves. And so, Spacey, would you like to tell us a bit about you?
Yep, I'm Spacey. I'm an INTP. I have a Typology YouTube channel, and I type people for a modest fee.
Cool. And Jamila?
I'm Jamila. I'm an ISFP, obviously. I'm an Enneagram 4, and I actually just created a type page on Instagram called Types in Black Ink, so you can check that out.
Awesome sauce. And Mara?
Hi, I'm Mara. I'm an ISTP, and I write on a typology blog called PracticalTyping.
Cool beans. And Cristian?
I'm Cristian. I'm an INFP, self-pres, 4-wing 5, and I do independent research on state formation and development of democracies.
That is deep.
Yeah, profound stuff, Cristian. And so go check out Practical Typing. It's a website that Mara runs with this ISTJ called Ryan, and it's a really good website if you want to see the Jungian concept distilled in a very simple and practical way. And yeah, they're awesome. Go support the sensors in your community. And also, Spacey has a YouTube channel, and Jamila has her Instagram page. So go check out all those awesome people. Our first topic for today is what makes all IP types the same? So what connects you all together as IPs?
Well, one thing that jumped into my mind from what was going on in the Facebook group was that it's possible that we all have a tendency to be tardy. I don't know if that's true for like the ISPs as much.
It is for me.
Spread to other types too, though.
Well, I mean, it's one of those things where like you definitely see some people have way more of a tendency to like your relationship with time will lead you to be late to stuff.
Yeah, I have a bad relationship with time, but I can't tell if that's because I'm an IP or it's my ADHD, which is probably both.
Well, they're probably stem from sort of the same source.
Probably.
Like,
I've noticed a lot of IPs tend to have ADHD. I think it's high stack extroverted perception.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Say I had ADHD.
Yeah.
Yeah, like my
verified though.
Yeah.
Like, my mom is an ISFP. She's super hyper. She definitely has ADHD.
I would say that IPs have a they're about I think one thing that they all have in common is like a focus on identity. I think that the fact that and individuality. So I think that the being JI DOMs, I think there is a sort of fixation or striving to find your identity. But obviously it'll be a little bit different depending on whether it's TI or FI. But there's also like IP rightness. So I think IPs have a propensity for wanting to be right because I think JI DOM is about like seeking truth, whether it's like an objective truth or subjective truth. And so, but whichever one it is, I think there's a need to be right about some sort of important value or principle. So I think that causes them to need to be right in certain things. So I think that's like kind of like the biggest thing that I've seen.
Yeah, so Personality Hacker, they have the firm model, and the IP fixation is on rightness. What is everyone's relationship with rightness? Where does it apply? Where does it not apply?
I mean, like, I guess what it means for me personally is just, or I guess where it would show up, it can show up in a few places. It can show up in like, I guess, intentions. So not only in my own intentions, but like intentions of other people. So needing to be right about that, like an accurate judgment of my own values or feelings or intentions versus somebody else's. So sometimes this happens with like high stack FE users, where it seems as though I can sense that they're actually feeling a certain way, that they might say, oh no, like I'm totally fine. And I'm like, are you really? Like, you know, so like there's sort of like I guess a rightness in that. And also just a rightness in things that like I'm passionate about, or that I believe in. So if it had anything to do with, let's say, like politics or something, there's an element of needing to be right about maybe like a certain policy dispute, and then I would like proffer a lot of evidence. I guess you'd say TE evidence, to say like, look, I'm right. Like, look at all this evidence, this empirical evidence that supports what I'm saying, and how it's right. So like that's kind of how it shows up for me.
I mean, is this supposed to be presuming that we need to prove to other people that we're right?
No.
Okay, because I don't typically have
I would say most of the
checking.
time, yeah, most of the time we probably don't feel the need to prove to people that we're right. Yeah, because it's more of an introverted thing.
Yeah, I think it depends. Like if it's like policy stuff, for me personally, it would be like I need to prove that this is correct.
Well, if someone's challenging you,
right? Yeah, like
it's a different thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Like if we're like having a discussion, yes. But like if somebody like is telling me, I think you're wrong for whatever personal value you have, I'll be like, okay, cool.
I'm trying to figure out how this differs from other types, because like say the ISTJs are incredibly stubborn when they think they're right. So I don't really.
Well, they'll also quickly change their minds if you can prove them wrong, though. It's like,
okay.
Yeah, I mean, I know that personality hacker or / the firm model, they like group it as like IPs is called rightness, and then IJs is something else, EJs is something else, and EPs is something else. So whatever the IJ thing is, then that's their thing.
Yeah.
But like I said, I don't really remember like specifically what all is supposed to entail quote unquote rightness.
I think accuracy might be a better word sometimes,
because
it's not always about being right or wrong necessarily, but it's about like getting it right. You know?
Yeah.
Like,
yes.
I want emotional consistency. Like, yeah, and I want to get to the root of how I'm feeling and why I'm feeling it. And if anything is to challenge that, then okay, it's going to challenge it. But I always have to go back to, okay, but is it true? Or is this belief true to who I am or what I believe about myself, about life, etc.?
Right. It's got to match up perfectly.
That actually connects to, now that I think about it, what I was going to say, what kind of makes us similar is how a lot of times from the outside looking in, we can look lazy or feel unmotivated or whatever, because if it doesn't really make sense to us, then it's hard for us to be motivated to do it or to believe in it. So I think that's another thing.
Definitely.
I agree.
Very true.
Sometimes there could be a rightness also for me in if somebody is insisting that like a certain intention that I have, and so like I want to say like, and they're challenging me on it, I'm like, no, like I need you to understand, like that is not accurate. Like let me correct you on this.
Christian, listen, the Lord has been testing me 20, because all of these people try to talk about my intentions
Yes.
and my character.
Yep.
Like, listen, I was okay up until now. Okay. So yes, that is a big thing for me. Like, no, I am very self-aware in a lot of ways. Okay. You don't need to project whatever insecurities you got on me.
Yes.
I'm this, that, and the third. Like, that's what we're not about to do.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
I can, like, own up and take responsibility for a lot of things. Maybe not at first. Like, obviously, sometimes people need to point things out to be like, yo, how you did this, da da da. It's like, oh, true, that's true. But other things, like who I am as a person, like, I know. So you spit in Cristian. You spit.
I got you.
Yeah, is that like is that specifically IP, or does it apply more for FI DOMs? Because I remember an FI DOM friend of mine, he was telling me about an example in his life where, you know, someone accused him of doing something and it wasn't how they assumed it to be. And so like my INFP friend was trying to explain to them, no, this is why I did that. And then that person was totally missing why he actually did it. And then it was like, you know, what Cristian said, like, no, you have to understand this is the reason why I did that, or this is the intention. And then like people miss the mark and it can really rub IFPs the wrong way.
Oh, I was tell you what your intentions were.
Right. Right. I think it might be an IFP thing or an FI thing. But because sometimes like it depends, but I think maybe some FE users might not care about the intention. So, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, do y'all relate to that at all?
I do actually a lot. Like I don't like it. I don't like having my like character brought into question. Like if somebody suggests that I'm not a good person, or that like I'm not working hard, I was really pissed about that the other day. Right? Don't fucking tell me, right, I'm not working hard because I pack up 5 minutes early, okay? When you're over there fucking showing people YouTube videos.
Oh wow,
you know,
there
it's
it comes
like,
out.
Yeah, it's
okay, yeah.
But like I still feel like that's actually FI though.
So what I think is an IP thing is like being misunderstood by people. So it seems like Spacey is misunderstood easily by people, and I think IPs in general, because their surface appearance might not show like their inner. Like
it's
I don't
like
know.
It's like getting your identity misinterpreted.
That's a great point.
And we ultimately all have it's a high identity function, whether TI or FI.
Right.
If someone tries to say, "Oh, you're this," like, no, I'm not.
Right.
I mean, there are times where, as my inferior FE, there was a bit of, am I like that?
Yeah.
But there are other things I'm just like, no.
Yeah.
Shut up.
I think it's healthy to question, like, wait, why would they perceive that of me? And you're like racking your brain. Like, I think it's healthy to do that.
Right.
I think at our core, we're pretty like cognizant of our intentions, our identity, our character when we're healthy.
Yeah, agreed.
That makes sense. I mean, because like what you were saying about it, our identity and us being perceived a certain way or whatever, because I once said that like FI will step in a room and wonder what everybody thinks about them, or FE steps in a room and it's like thinking about, or it's like looking at everybody else. Oh yeah, FI steps in the room and feels like people are looking at them, and FE steps in the room and looks at everybody else. It was something like that. And if TPs have FE last, then I could see how it's like super like blind, quote unquote, because you don't really know what people are thinking, even when you're kind of supposed to. And then especially like for ISTPs, if it's that tertiary NI there, then it's like you're trying to kind of put yourself in there, you know, or like you're trying to perspective shift, but then it gets and so then you're like, who am I? Or like, how do these people perceive me, or whatever.
Yeah. No, I think that's an interesting distinction. Here. So the Cognitive Type website has like a really awesome thing about JI DOMs and the similarities. So that would be IP. And one thing they talk about is idealism. I think IPs have a common idealism about life. At least that seems to be my experience with other IPs. Where I think like I think as JI DOMs, like we we construct these like models, whether that's a subjective like value-based model or an objective logic-based one, and so these are kind of like idealistic models of our values or principles, and I think then we kind of like sometimes impose that on the real world. So I think we do have we can have an idealism about us.
My question would be, is the IFP more likely to impose their ideal into the world because they have TE? So like their FI thinks about the ideal and then their TE wants to impose it. But whereas like ISTPs and INTPs might be less likely to impose their ideals on the world because no TE.
I don't know if our ideals can be imposed.
Yeah.
In the same
I see
way.
myself as idealistic, so I'm like kind of figure out how to apply this.
like I feel like TI and FE for some reason produces way more like linguistic, kind of abstract kinds of things. It like I don't know if we're trying to like make a system out of it. You know what I'm saying? It's like.
And I'm generally
like
not
one that can be built.
My TI.
I don't know. It's.
I think there can be an idealism. Maybe like impose is not like the right word, but there's I guess there's a trying to like arrange the outer world in such a way that it might conform to our idealism, even if we're not like successful at it.
I'm trying to think. We just want to get people to agree with us. I guess that's the imposing part.
I mean, I can read you the thing and see if you agree with it.
Yeah, but I would say that's kind of the TIFE process. It's not so much that we have to like, kind of like you take your FI and then you structure it in the world. We take our TI and then we just try to get everybody to adopt it.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily feel you need to always get people to agree with my TI, but I want them to understand it.
Well, right.
Yeah.
To explain it to
you.
And
hopefully agree with it if it's right.
Obviously, that would be nice.
Yeah.
I'm usually going for a base level of recognizing it as valid, even if you don't agree with it.
Yeah, exactly. Because we don't have any empirical evidence for it usually.
Right. Well, if I can, the description says idealistic is not necessarily in the dreamy or fantastical sense, but in the purely rational sense of wanting what is fully aligned to reason. Many a JI type will be stubbornly idealistic and feel no compromise is a good compromise and will fight for their utopian vision of people, society, and the world at large. I can definitely agree with that.
Yeah, I can relate to that.
To me, it sounds more FITE. What I see FI as is like idealism, or so it's like so Personality Hacker calls FI and TE dreams and goals. So it's like FI will come up with that ideal or dream, and then the TE will want to structure things around that dream or that FI. So that, if that makes sense. So FI is like the North Star for the TE to build like real world order around. If that makes sense.
That makes sense. I think maybe both types have idealism, in the sense that like cognitive type website is talking about, but like we might execute it. Like maybe IFPs might be more inclined to like actually structure the world using TE to conform to our idealism, where maybe like ITPs might not do that, even though they might have an idealism.
I think this is considering something like logical purity a form of idealism. For example,
I think that's what it is. Yeah.
Like you can't realistically expect everything to make rational sense, or you'll go freaking crazy.
Right.
But yeah.
I think there's also like I don't know if we talked about this, but I think there's also IP perfectionism, and I think Joyce, you've talked about this before, but I think there is definitely a perfectionism about IPs as well.
Yes, that is a thing.
Yeah, like and I think we can be especially like really hard on ourselves if our actions don't conform to our JI principles or values. So at least that's for me.
I'm not typically very hard on myself.
I'm very hard on myself.
No,
I know
I think
they usually are very hard on themselves.
we might be harder on ourselves, the INPs. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, like I'm wondering some of these things might be more like INP stuff than ISP stuff.
Because
That wouldn't surprise me.
frankly, we're more unrealistic.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like if I were to say I was perfectionist, it's usually when, say, I'm working on something and I'm trying to make it perfectly in sync with itself, and that's where my TI is coming in, and that's where I might be a perfectionist, and I can't walk away from it until it's completely right.
Yeah, yeah, I
Right.
think
But I'm
that
not
makes sense.
what I would consider hard on myself, generally speaking.
Oh, okay. I think I'm hard on myself if I don't. So like that sounds like if your the execution of your TI is not like perfect, then you might get frustrated with yourself. Whereas for me, like if I do something that goes against my values, then I will be very hard on myself. So like even if sometimes I've done like a white lie. I've made a white lie, and like I felt like extremely guilty about it afterwards, because like one of my big values is like complete honesty. So so then I'll like really beat myself up over it, and people like tell me like relax, like you're good, and I'll be like no, I like did this horrible thing. Yeah, it's terrible.
But yeah, so like I was working on a project earlier. Well, I was working on a coding project earlier because I have a couple websites that I do for like as a ministry type thing. And
Nice.
there was a bug in the plugin that I wrote. I fixed it, but I don't know why it's fixed. And it shouldn't have been a problem, but it's been driving me crazy all day because it shouldn't have been a problem to begin with. I don't understand why it's working now. Well, I understand why it's working now, but if it's working now, I don't understand why all the other things around it worked
Right.
to begin with, because if that one broke, they all should have broke, but only the one broke.
Right.
So what I did is I feel like it's a hack that shouldn't have worked, or that I shouldn't have needed to begin with.
Right.
And it just eats at my TI when that happens.
I see. Like I think. Go ahead.
But I basically know I have to move on and forget about it because it's not worth it anymore.
I think most people would not like who are not TI DOM or you know ISP would not ISTP would not like would be like just get over it, like it works, so who cares. But like I think we could be maybe particular about certain stuff like that, like IPs and whatever it is, you know.
It's really interesting, Mara, that you mentioned that. You rewrite a few of the articles on your website too, and I thought that was like super evident of your function. So I was wondering if you could tell us the story about you rewriting articles, like the ISTP versus ESTP one.
Well, yeah, I mean, generally speaking, as I learn more things and me and Ryan talk about different things, I do like when we figure something new out or a deeper nuance or something like that. Yeah, I kind of sit there and go, okay, wait a minute, that's right. That means this was wrong and this was wrong. And I gotta go check this article. And I gotta go check that article. And they say that you're supposed to, if you're a blogger, you're supposed to write it and forget it.
Mm-hmm.
Cannot do that, especially because I theoretically want the site to be a resource. So if I can't just write it and forget it and have stuff that's wrong. So
see, that's the perfectionism right there.
Right, yeah, so that's where it comes in. So I have to go back, I check these articles like, okay, so is this still right? Is this still right? Okay, this one I need to rewrite.
Yeah, that's funny. Like I can be that way, but like in my own thing. With but actually with writing too, like I love writing, and I can't just like write freely and just let it just flow out. Like every sentence or two, I'm like going back, like, okay, how does that sound? Like, is it, you know, like it's torture. It's torturous.
You know, I have to say, working in construction has caused me to completely transcend all of that perfectionism, because
God,
I can't do anything right. I literally am not able to do anything right. So it's just like, good enough for this shit show. Moving on. I don't have time. It's just,
wow, what a
just
blessing.
Get used to it. Yeah.
Good for you.
And there's a certain degree of conforming to what
right.
possible. Like when I worked in system administration, it was You were putting bandages on bandages. You just had to accept facts.
Yeah, right.
Going back to, you know, the concept of purity that Spacey talked about. So it's kind of like this gunning for either like logical purity or purity of your values that causes like a neuroticism almost. It's like, you know, when Mara was talking about the articles, and it's like, if this is wrong, then it means this article and this part is wrong. And then that part connected to that is also wrong.
It's like the whole system.
Like, it's like a whole
You do a
system.
site-wide search to see all the articles that connect to this subject and see what's...
That's amazing.
I will say, I don't know if Mara is necessarily like me in that regard, but as far as being right goes, there's one thing that I do. It's like a reflex that just goes off when somebody says something. Like, it could be something totally mundane or whatever, but if it's just patently false, you know, or it just doesn't make any sense, I have like this reflex, like I just start speaking to correct it before I even know what I'm doing.
It depends on who
Like,
it is.
But maybe, yeah, you know what? That it does kind of, because there's some people you're ready to correct them.
Well,
So
yes.
your IP types get suddenly stubborn, unexpected.
Yes.
Like usually they're very laid back. You say just the right thing, and suddenly they're just like locked up and stubborn. And no, you're wrong. You're wrong.
That's another one. Yes, you brought up a great point. I think I'm Spacey. I can relate to you. I think Joyce calls it TE correcting, but there's definitely some times where people say something and I'm like, like I want to correct them. Like that is not actually empirically correct.
Yeah, and then you give them all the TE statistics that you have, and you, like your citations from sources.
Your SI list of all of your TE statistics, and you start reading them off.
Yeah, that's well put, Cristian. The SI list of your TE statistics. That's lovely.
No, it's literally someone will be like, you know, peanuts are a nut, and I'm just like, no, they're not. They're legumes. And then I'm just like back to whatever I was doing, like, you know.
So stuff like that, I just usually don't even care about. Like now we're just.
No, like it doesn't. Like I'm saying, it almost doesn't matter. Sometimes I'll just be like, nope, that's false.
But
back to what I was doing.
I think, Mara, I love about the stubbornness though, because like that's what's funny is that like we can be extremely like deceiving on the outside. We look very chill and laid back, and then you hit on like that one thing, and all of a sudden, you know, like our extroverted judging function comes out. We're just like,
You know, that actually reminds me of something else I was going to say, because we were talking about how we hate being like misread and misinterpreted and stuff. But I think we don't actually make it very easy for people to read us either.
No, not at all.
So a little bit of it is our fault.
Okay, no. See, here's the thing. I understand that at first glance you think that I'm this, that, and the third, and I let you have that. But it's
you just said that, right? You're not actually showing them who you are. Yeah.
Right.
But we've been rocking for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And you're coming up with all this crazy stuff. Like, you know, some of the things that like I've been dealing with personally, and all of a sudden I'm this and I'm that. That's when I have a problem, because you should know better. But I understand, you know, that I have like, you know, a resting bitch face. I understand that. And so my Dom husband pointed that out to me in college. I did not know that. I thought I looked like I was the happiest person in the world. But he's talking to me like, oh, such and such says you're a mean person. I'm like, who? I never spoke to that person in my life. And then so I understand that. But it's when people who should know me better to start saying things about me that it's just like, that doesn't make sense.
It's like, who do you think I am, right? It's
right.
Like,
I just rather people not guess too. It's like, if you don't know, don't guess.
And I think also that goes into, and maybe this is another IP thing where it's like, we don't let people in easily. You know what I mean?
Very true.
It's like once you've kind of entered the fold, and we've accepted you as a part of our identity, but then you like do some shady stuff. It's like, okay, and so this is why I don't have friends. Because,
Yes.
or this is why people think I'm mean or unapproachable or this or that. It's because it's almost like I'm scoping.
Yes, I will test people in certain in certain ways. Just like like I might like throw something out, like one thing, and see how they'll react to it, and then like that'll be a cue, like okay, like we can go to the next step type thing. And it's funny because like sometimes I feel like I'm way more open than I think I am. But like then like some of my close friends will say, like you don't like they're usually talking more about themselves than I am about myself. Like I will, like I realize that I actually don't talk a lot about myself. Sometimes like when I'm hanging out with friends, I'm usually like letting them talk about themselves. So, unless like, again, like I've just been burned in the past, like when I've opened up and like people have not responded in a particular way that makes me feel safe. So then like, I just kind of am quiet. So also too, I didn't realize a coworker of mine pointed out to me that sometimes like he said that like I come in to work sometimes like with my shoulders like pulled inward, and he said that like sometimes it might make me seem unapproachable. I didn't realize I do that, but I think sometimes subconsciously I don't want people to be around. And it shows up in my body language. He's like, you should, and then he's an ENFP, so he's like, you got to stand up straight, your shoulders back, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah, something I hear a lot from JI people is they'll go like, I've been burned in the past. I don't know, it's like this sensitivity to criticism from people, or like burning you in the past, like you handing, like for FI users, like you hand them your emotions or your genuine, your honest emotions, like you give them your emotional honesty, and then it backfires on you. And like, yeah, it's just like I've heard that speech a lot.
The last time that happens.
Yes. Yep. That's so funny.
It's funny because you said like, it like reminds you of things that happened in the past. And I think subconsciously my brain does that too, but I more so am able to just kind of predict. Like when I meet a person, I'm like, okay, this conversation is going to go here, 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 and here, and we're not going to be friends. Like I can just
NI.
I don't really think about, oh, this person reminds me of this person or this.
Right.
I don't really go much in depth in that way.
I think that's the difference between our NI and our SI. So I'll refer back to past experiences, and you will, use your NI perception to kind of like follow a train of thought and predict what might happen in the future.
Exactly.
I relate to Jamila on that. Like meeting someone and kind of going like, it'll go this way. It's not really relating them to anyone, but it's relating them to your conceptualization of how you see them right now, and you can see just how it'll go.
That's so interesting.
Maybe it's a little different because I notice like with FI DOMs, like there's a saying that Sheila said before, and it's how they prematurely have an emotional feeling about people that they meet, and then they'll go like, I don't really like this type of person. Or could it be also that too, like Jamila with the FI?
Oh yeah, I've seen my sister
like it's
do
emotional prejudging, so it's basically that.
Yeah, I don't relate to that. Like that's why like I have to gather like SI perception of behaviors and then cross-reference it from prior behavior, and then I will so like that's why it can lead me down into bad relationships because I have to go in more, as opposed to like having some sort of prediction about how I perceive it will be. So that's different.
That's why SFP types are so good at scoping people.
Yes.
Like it'll take me 6 months to freaking realize this person was a piece of shit when it took my sister fucking 5 seconds.
Yeah.
It's like
I know, it's so embarrassing sometimes.
I know.
Like I think one of my friends might be an ESFP, EFP, but maybe ESFP, and they'll be like, I knew from the beginning that this person was going to be a problem, but I didn't want to say anything. I know you had to go through it, and I'm like,
Yeah.
fuck, you know. And it's just like I don't know. Also, too, it's this NE like, oh, you know, maybe this time's different, you know, like this hopeful possibility, like
that's the NI countervaluing there when it's deadly. Yeah, maybe this time will be different.
Yeah. Oh God.
No.
Yeah. So
just see people for what they are.
yeah. See, that's what my my INFJX said. She's like you see people for like how you wish they would be as opposed to how they actually are.
Mhm.
And she was like, and that's where you run into problems. And I think, I think that's pretty accurate.
Yeah. See, listen, I can see people for how I wish they would be too. I wish a lot of people would be a lot of different ways. We can be friends. I can wish you to be something else over there.
Yeah.
You from over here.
Yeah.
You and me.
Yeah.
I love that. That's amazing. And so my question I would like to pose for all of you IPs is like, how do people get close to you if you have these like, I don't know how you describe it, like a barrier people have to pass to get to your true self. What does someone have to do to get closer to you guys?
That is the question.
Well, for me, like it like I was kind of saying before, it's like a series of kind of tests, right? Like if they say certain things that like cue me in, like, okay, like I think this person can be cool, then like, you can proceed to the next layer. And so it takes time. But that's kind of how I do it. It's just kind of a like wait and see type thing. I really have to trust you. And also I think too, it doesn't have to be exactly the same, but like if we can like if we share similar values, then I can. The thing is like for me is like people who are extremely judgmental. I tend to be more. I can be more sensitive. So like if somebody is giving off like kind of like when I see, so I pay attention to how these people act towards other people. If I see a person, kind of, saying to somebody like, if somebody is like hurting or something or really upset, and this person that I might want to be friends with, I see them being like going up to that person being like, just get over it, it's not a big deal, I'm like, I don't think so. So so it just depends, but that's kind of how it is. There's a vetting process.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And so I was wondering, Jamila, you said that like when someone becomes close to you, you take them on as a part of your identity. Is that like specifically an FI thing, or do TI users do it too? Because I hear a lot of FI users say like when they get close to someone, they take that person on as a part of their identity. Does that only apply for FI, or can it bleed on to TI?
What does that mean?
Yeah.
Being no.
I think it's an FI Dom thing. I think there's somebody called it relational empathy, which is FI, which is different than what FE has. So like with the relational empathy, like I think FI Dom's like once we get really close to people, like they become part of us. So that's why sometimes like we can, we might, like at least for me, like I can feel like if somebody who's really close to me is going through something like really hard, I might like feel like I'm part of that as well, because they've kind of been incorporated into my FI heart.
Like they basically feel like they're you.
Yeah, like they're an extension of you. Like I think the whole relational empathy thing, I think, is a good category or title for that.
I don't know if this is specific to type, but I know that for me, that comes out a lot through like possessiveness. Like I'm really possessive over people I'm close to. Like, no, that's
Mm.
thing. I don't know. I do remember though in college, it was either before my husband and I started dating or in the beginning, he would like want to sit with me in my class and stuff like that. And I would just be like, oh no, like that's okay. Like, because I still didn't really feel, I don't know. I just didn't want that attention on me because I guess I hadn't felt like he was like a part of me yet. Or maybe I did feel like he was a part of me. And so I felt like people saw us together, then they would have like their judgments about us. And I just didn't want any of that. So it was like kind of awkward for me at first. But so those are the first two things that kind of come to mind. Yeah.
Yeah. So something I hear a lot from FI users is that like when someone gets close to them, like actually close to them, it's like what Jamila and Cristian are saying. It's like that person is an extension of them. It's almost like they're you and you consider them you. And there can be a possessiveness that stems from that. Like my person, yeah, so that's beautifully put. Yeah, and it seems like TI users don't have that.
Not really.
Well, how do you guys like as let people in? Like, what's your process?
I will basically let anyone in if they actually want to come in, but that like
If they
never
actually
happens.
work for it.
Like, yeah, I mean, well, they don't even have to really work for it. I mean, sometimes I'll.
You're brave.
Well, there has to be some effort.
Well, right. Sometimes I'll do like a little shit test, I guess. But you can go ahead.
I mean, I'm not necessarily testing people, but I actually want to see effort for them because I feel like with a lot of old friendships, I feel like I was the one always putting the effort. So I finally just go, okay, never mind.
Yeah.
You and
I've had the same problem.
But I'm also not necessarily one that's real quick to be, I don't know, sharing my deep emotions or whatever. So I'm not having the problem with I was burned in the past, usually.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's going to take me a really, really, really long time to get there anyway, if I ever do.
Yeah. I don't really. Yeah, only my oldest friend from like first grade have I ever like talked about anything like, I guess, super emotional or deep with. But like.
Okay, that's super enlightening.
Yeah.
So it's the FI DOMs. It's the FI DOMs that are most likely to go like, I've been burned in the past, because I've definitely heard that from my FI DOM friends a lot, like a lot of them.
Yeah. We open up. Like I think we want to connect with people on a deep level, and sometimes we can be notorious for like, you know, asking really deep, penetrating questions when we meet people, and it makes people feel uncomfortable. But it's just like I don't care about like I hate surface like relationships. Like I find them
Me too.
like so like I want to get to know you, and so like I think that's where then like once the level of trust is established and you really get to know somebody, then I feel comfortable like opening myself up, or as much as I, you know, can allow myself to. And so because of that, yeah, there's like an attachment, you know, that comes from that. And so that's, yeah.
Okay, that's really interesting. For this, I relate to Tamar and Spacey. Like, I'm really open to relationships. Like, if someone else wants to be my best friend, they're like, oh, you want to be friends? And I'm like, sure, of course. But it's like, I don't feel like there's no specific like barrier to entry. Like, I'm not. Oh, but it's just effort. Just put effort, and
I'm like suspicious if they're like, oh, let's be best friends. I'm like,
right, that's a red flag.
Well, no, it's not like it's like sure I'll be friends with you. That's fine.
Right. Like,
and if you keep my interest and you know I don't scare you off, then we're good. You know.
I just you can't come on too strong, or else like like let's be friends. Like, hey, hold on. You know, I don't even really know you. You know.
Yeah. I mean, I don't care if anyone comes up and talks to me and they're friendly. I'm down.
I'm down with conversations, like that's fine, but like if they immediately like just want to jump into like being friends, like like, and I don't really know them that well, it's like,
Well,
okay,
being
maybe get
friends
there.
means something different to you. I mean, for me, there's like friends, and then there's friends.
I think
There's
no,
different levels of friendships.
I think
1000%.
yes, I think, I don't know, for me, there's like, okay, like there's acquaintances, and then there's friends, and then there's close friend, or no, good friends, close friends, best friends.
Christian, break it
Like, there's a higher, I think that's I don't know, I've heard that's an FI thing, but there's definitely a hierarchy of friends.
for sure. That's like something that I've been, I don't know, working through or thinking about or whatever, like this past year as well. It's just like understanding and like compartmentalizing my friends and everything like that. Like I said, people was trying to play me this year. and so it's just like, you've been bumped down.
Right.
Just like understanding the hierarchy. I think, yeah, that's definitely like FI and TE, like the structure of people. It's
like a system.
Exactly. But for me, it's kind of like both. Like there was a third thing, but I forgot what the third thing was. But for me, it's definitely, in terms of like people getting close to me, it's definitely like, I guess, tests that I run. But it's also just patience, because I do feel like I'm an open person, and like if anybody wants to be really close with me, then I'm fine with that. It's just that, number one, I can see through people pretty quickly, so you can try to get close to me if you want to. But but number two is that I think most of the time people just don't have the patience for me for whatever reason. If it's that, they want to be more surface level, or like I'm too weird, or we have different values or different interests, like,
Right.
whatever. So I think I kind of relate to all of you in a way where it's like, I'm open to friendship for sure. It's just that, yes, I'm going to be like skeptical,
Right.
but also like I can be super patient. And then also I do like run some tests to see like, okay, are you legit?
Yeah.
Also, it's like, okay, you got an 80. You belong in this category. You got a 35. You belong in this category. Talking again. So, yeah.
Yes.
Right. You scored
All
a
of that.
20, you go in the trash.
Right. Yes.
I've also had FI users like explain it like the friendship categories as you're in my heart or you're not in my heart. I don't know if I'm butchering what they're saying, but it's like they'll say like you're in my, like, I don't know. So, never mind. But okay. The second the second thing I wanted to say was I just wanted the audience to take note of when Cristian was getting more and more heated as he was explaining friends. That's another sign of FI too. So when you notice someone talking and increasingly getting more passionate, that you'll see like the ITPs are more calm throughout the whole thing. Like the IFPs will get like revved up as they're more passionate. So that's a difference.
That's funny.
Well, that made me think. For me, it's really simple though. I have acquaintances. Anybody can be my acquaintance. Then I have people who I've known for a while, but they're not really friends, I guess. But we have like a certain working relationship or understanding, regardless, And then there's people who are really my friends, and I guess they're my friends because they've actually proven to me that I can depend on them when shit goes down, like that kind of thing, or that they actually care about me, or they actually genuinely appreciate me, or something like that.
I forgot. I actually have a question for you, because I'm really fascinated by the fact that you said there's only one person that you've really ever like opened up to or something.
Yeah.
Well, as far as like friends go, I would say, yeah.
So like, what are the other people in your life for?
Ooh, good question.
I mean, they're not really for that much. I mean,
really?
Yeah.
Because like as an FI Dom, like that is the purpose of like life and relationships. So it's hard for me to understand like what your relationships are for. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean,
It's like a T. That's kind of like a T way of looking at it, but I feel the same way because this is like, what is your purpose? Like, if you're just, I don't like wasting my time with things that are just not going anywhere. So
I mean, they have to be. They're people that I can actually like talk about stuff that like I'm interested with, like people I can be myself around basically, and not have to pretend.
Yeah.
And people I can have fun with. Honestly, I just like to have fun with people.
Yeah.
that's good.
So
I
do
like
you
that.
like intentionally not talk about that type of stuff with people?
No,
Like,
no, actually, no. I mean, I would say for most of my life, if I talked about that stuff, it would be incredibly depressing, and nobody wants to talk about that.
I know you.
Yeah.
As an INFP, I'm willing. I'm going to extend the invitation.
Yeah.
You can. I'll sit in the dark there, right next to you, and it's all good.
Yeah.
FI force, we got you.
We got you. Like, we're all about dark. We're
For
force.
sure. Yeah.
Are you the same way?
Right
where
on.
Your friends are just kind of like, oh, they're there for a good time.
There are friends that we just hang out with, and then there are the rare friends that I might have more than that. But
Yeah.
those are very, very few and far between. And yeah.
I would say like that one friend I talked about, for example, I might go, no, I have more friends than that, but he's just like my oldest, you know? And I could go maybe like 4 months without even talking to him.
Mm-hmm.
But if he was in trouble, I would be right there. Like, it's like that. So
That's cool.
You know,
That's a good friendship.
Yeah, and y'all been close for that long too. That's rare.
Yeah, I have a friendship with someone for gosh, we've been friends 20 years. So
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's very special. We're very close with their family. Like, they're like second parents to me. Like, I'm always going to like family events and stuff like that. So yeah.
I guess the deep part, it's there, but it just doesn't go acknowledged maybe in an FE environment. I don't really know how to explain it. It's like we all have that understanding that like, yo, dude, I understand. Like, but we don't have to talk about it all the time. It's just like it's like a given. I don't know.
Interesting.
But yeah, I don't really feel the need to intentionally, emotionally connect with all my friends.
Oh, that's
it's
different.
Not really necessary in
for a good time. That's what you're saying.
So, yeah,
mostly.
I like to hang out with certain friends because I like to spend my time and enjoy myself. But I'm not going to need to sit there and really connect with all of them.
Yeah.
It's not necessary.
I mean, like, and realistically, like most people can only maintain like one or two like very, very close friends, which that's kind of, I have, very few close friends, and it's not always like we're talking super deep, but it's nice to like, but I do talk about deep things with these friends.
Exactly. With
these close friends. So, or like, even if, something's, really bothering me, or I'm upset about something, it's nice to have, that. And that's something that like, I remember my first therapy session, my therapist asked, do you have a support system? And I said, yes. And she's like, great. Because that's incredibly important for everybody. So I think it's important that we have, support system. And I think that includes friends, close friends, at least.
I'm wondering right now, like, what are the different levels of IP health depending on how strong their social system is? Because I don't think everyone has like a support system that's an IP. So I'm wondering, like, how does that affect them?
Yeah,
But
I don't
that's
have a
awesome.
support system. Are you kidding me?
Oh, I'll support you.
I got my family. Like, they'll keep me from dying. So I love them. I absolutely love them.
I mean, like, I think at least from my understanding of like the psych literature, like when we don't have support systems, and obviously I think this will be magnified or exacerbated for IPs, but then I think there's like a level of like depression or melancholy when there's not a support system. That's what I would see as far as like the unhealthiness. it'll manifest itself that way. Like lack of motivation to do anything.
Oh, definitely.
You know, stuff like that. It's hard, you know. We can only like, you know, I think IPs can have maybe be a little bit more insecure than maybe some other types, and so it's hard enough to try and motivate ourselves, you know, and to think positively of ourselves. So it's nice when you do have the support, even if you don't always believe it, but you know, from friends. But yeah, I think it probably would unhealthy levels for IPs without a support system is going to be lack of motivation, melancholy, sadness, you know, that kind of stuff. Maybe like emotional irregularity, inability to like regulate or control your emotions.
Yeah, so to return to the question of how to befriend IPs, like, so Jamila,
Yes.
what are some intentional questions you would ask people to test them?
Joyce, it's not like a test. It's just
Yeah.
an FE vibe test.
Yeah.
And it's more so in the moment. You know what? I think one thing though, which isn't always a test, but it just becomes like, oh, noted. I see how they respond to this, is if I open up to them and I see how they respond to it. And it's like, that wasn't up to par.
Yes. that is the big one for me. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
There aren't really like a certain series of questions. Just like if I'm opening up to them about some type of emotional thing or whatever, or sometimes principles or like beliefs that I have and just how they perceive them and just the nature of the conversation too. Like sometimes it really is just that, like, are we just able to go back and forth like smoothly and stuff like that too. They don't have to necessarily believe everything that I believe. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What happens if you adopt someone into your identity, but then they prove to be untrustworthy and you have to like exile them? How does it feel?
Yeah, listen, it is rough. And the thing is, because like, I don't know if this is true for Cristian, but I know for me, like, I'm a great judge of character. And it literally wasn't until last year where somebody that kind of like bled into this year, that somebody that I like accepted into like, you know, my FI heart, as you put it. And they just like started wilding out and like, I am almost like still not over it because it was just like, how did that happen? And how did I let that happen? Like, I know, you know, all the padlocks and the passcodes and all this stuff and the little fingerprint and the eye print thing. And how did I let that happen? So it is really hard. And I think, so yeah, and I guess that kind of speaks to the whole identity thing because it's just like, what about me allowed that to happen? Or what about me says that I'm not a good friend or I'm not a good enough friend to this person for them to treat me like X, Y, and Z? And then it's also just like frustration. It's just, you know, it's a lot, Joyce.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, thank you for letting me pry a little into that.
It's interesting. I just want to draw a quick comparison between, I just noticed how TI and FI can actually do the same thing where they're like, I should have known.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I know everything. I should have known. Right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what makes it even those situations even more upsetting. You know, it's like fooled again.
Yes.
Yeah, it's devastating.
So I was wondering, can you be around that person anymore that you've let into an extension of your identity, but then you had to exile them? Can they still be in your life, or will you always still feel that around them?
For me, to be honest, apologies do hold a lot of weight for me. So like if I feel like you're sincerely apologetic, then I'm fine. Like I forgive very easily. Don't get me wrong. I forgive very easily. It just depends on like what happens after the apology. Like this one friend that I'm specifically thinking of right now, like she hasn't really tried to kind of get back to where we were. I don't know if we could, but like there really isn't much of a relationship at all. I would definitely be willing to be friends again. Like I said, I don't know if it would go back to how it was before, but like I said, I'm always open to friendship. I'm just always skeptical. That's all.
Yeah. I think it depends on for me personally on how it ends. I think because of my SI, sometimes I can hold on to grudges a little bit more. But I have a friend who I was very close to, and the friendship kind of suddenly ended about 5 years ago. And I think enough time has passed for me where like I'm okay, and I actually, would consider reaching out to this friend, and because I miss this person. I miss the friendship that we had. So I think like for me, I might hold on to it longer, like I said with SI, but like I think eventually like as time goes on, like I will, my heart will heal, and there will be room for for that person again. But like what Jamila said, there will be some skepticism, so it's not like we can start off like exactly where we left off. I mean, there will have to be rebuilding of trust, but the option is open.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And so Spacey and Mara, like what's your experience when you let someone into your inner world and you suddenly like have to like exile them? Are you able to still be around that person? Do you need to space yourself like to create space, or do you hold grudges? What is your experience with that?
No, if they did something that forced me to expel them, I literally cannot allow myself to interact with you again. It's over. No way. It fucking exploded.
I think there's the SI.
No, it's not even that. It's just like I hold grudges too and stuff. Like I get that. But this is just the kind of thing where like my limits of what I will let someone get away with are gigantic. And if they exceed that, then it's just like inhuman levels of being a shitty person. It's
okay, I see that. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I don't feel like I have very high standards for people, so
right. I don't either. Yeah.
A lot, and I don't necessarily. Yeah, I mean, I can't specifically relate because I don't feel like I've gone through that specifically, right. But I don't know what it would take to actually get me to completely expel someone.
Right.
Because I've never specifically had to do that, but I mean, because it would, I don't know, like, because for one, I think I forget my past emotions very quickly.
Yeah.
So there is that. Like I'm kind of a out of sight, out of mind kind of person. Like I forget a lot of that very, very quickly. So for me to actually cling to it for a long period of time, that would take a lot.
Yeah. SE.
Yeah. On top of not being a feeler. So
Right. So that makes sense.
This is so fascinating.
And I won't shit test people, but I'll stress test them. Like I have to give them like carefully metered doses of me being like real, and see if they get like shocked or appalled.
Okay. Okay, Steve, how have I done?
Well, you're fine. I mean, I knew from the get-go that you'd probably, you're like most of like the people I interact with in this community are like pretty cool with me. You know what I'm saying? It's not like we're out in the real world.
There is something I wanted to comment on that you said, Spacey. well, your whole thing that you just did, it hit me that, like, obviously, like we've, established, I don't have SI, but also I think with my FI, maybe what's most important to me across the board in all situations is authenticity and your intentions. And so if I feel like if somebody apologizes and I feel like it's a genuine apology, and I can, kind of see where they're coming from and empathize with them or whatever, and all of that stuff, then it's like worth mending, I guess. So I can't really think of a reason to completely expel somebody unless I feel like they are an inauthentic person. And 9 times out of 10, the people who I have somewhat completely expelled aren't, or they haven't apologized. So it's kind of like a thing. If you're authentic and you meant well, then you're probably going to be apologetic about what you did. And I'll be able to, accept that and we can move forward. But if you're not authentic, then
For
and
me,
I cannot be around inauthentic people. Like, it makes my skin crawl.
I'm actually the same way. I can tell when I run into a person who's like got a mask on or something, and I can feel it. I guess to me, it's not so much. Are you what's the word that you use? Authentic. I'm just really kind of looking for consistent.
Okay.
Yeah, people can be consistently inauthentic and
right. Exactly.
And no, we don't got time for that.
Right. I mean, it's more like you said this one day and now you're saying this.
Right.
Right.
I think that could be also authenticity.
I can deal with logical inconsistency.
I can't deal with that. No, like
intellectual
dishonesty is one of my least favorite things.
If you're like personality inconsistent, like super nice to somebody, then talking shit about that person behind their back, like
bad. Yeah, I hate that.
Yeah. Like if you're like Regina George up in this shit, like no.
Yeah,
I really want to see a consistency between people's words and their actions. And if they start misaligned, then something's wrong and I don't trust you.
Yeah, I think that's a JI thing, probably. Sounds like.
I mean, you can change your mind, obviously, and that's fine. So now your new words and your new actions are in sync. But
yeah, it's almost like, I don't know about your intentions or who you are or whatever, but something's off here. Right. Like,
yeah, for me, it doesn't even have to be, once again, maybe it's the NI with the FI. Like, I don't have to see you being Regina George. You don't have to be logically inconsistent. It's just like an immediate vibe. Like, I could just tell you're fake. Like, I could just tell.
Interesting.
I don't know why I'm good at telling the people are fake, though, because it's something that I noticed, for example, like my ISFP sister is like way better at least immediately seeing that.
Maybe because of her. That's like,
well, no, I have kind of my own process, I think.
Well, yeah, for sure.
It's like
maybe you're using TI
it's
in a certain way.
It's probably just NE more than anything.
Yeah, maybe it's a combo of TI NE.
You can any of them probably learn some of that if they actually felt compelled to.
Yeah. Like maybe like maybe you can. It's like your NE-SI, like NE perceives the behavior, then SI categorizes like, okay, like history has shown like this is not like this is inauthentic, and then like and then it fits into your like TI like logical structure framework of like how somebody logically should be in a particular situation, and if they're not, then that means that they're fake or not being inconsistent. They're being consistent.
Maybe I just underestimate how complex that system of like past experiences and connections between them that gets. I don't know.
I think like SI is pretty strong in that respect.
Yeah.
It's all different types of pattern recognition.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. disclaimer, anyone can do anything, but what I noticed a trend towards is like my FI friends. So I talked to Heidi Parib, she's a ENFP, and I just noticed like we had a conversation together, and she talked about how FI, it kind of has like a shady dar, like it can check if someone's intentions are shady, or like they're if they're inauthentic, basically, like they're hypersensitive to like what's in it for this person, or like what are they doing this for, or like that type of thing.
Man,
but
I think maybe I just honed my FI a lot.
Yeah, I think so.
I got pretty good at it.
Yeah,
because
I'd say so.
I developed a strange interest in people's intentions and motivations.
Yeah.
So I had to get good at it.
Well, it sounds like you're very good at it.
Yes.
Cool. And so topic change. Sorry guys, but great talk. And so I was wondering about everyone's relationship with authenticity. What does authenticity mean to you?
Well, to me, I would say that just not doing anything that doesn't align with like what I believe in. Kind of like what Cristian was saying earlier. I don't remember what he was talking about, but it reminded me of drugs. Oh, you said white. You were talking about white lies.
Yeah, I beat myself up if I'm not like in alignment with that. Yeah.
Oh, there's a Freudian slip right there.
And for me, I was just thinking about how I was invited to this birthday party, and this girl, she knows I don't do drugs, but she's like, yeah, so I'm going to slip drugs in the food, and I'm not going to tell you what foods have it. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, how is my FI gonna like do this? No, like, do I just tell her no, I'm just not gonna eat, or like, anyway. So yeah, that's one thing. It's just kind of like my personal convictions of not doing things that I don't like believe in, but also just not doing things I don't feel like doing. But then also doing things that I do believe in, and that I feel like best showcase who I am as a person. And so like a lot of times that comes out through my art and everything. So yeah, and then a lot of what we've been talking about our friendships and everything like that. I lost my train of thought.
I'd have to agree with Jamila. Pretty much same. Authenticity to me, like for me personally, are my actions in alignment with my values, and then sometimes I do extend that to other people. Especially if it's in like a close relationship context. Like, are their actions, in alignment with what they say their values are? Are they authentic?
Interesting. Okay, how about Spacey and Mara? What is authenticity to you?
I guess at the end of the day, it's honesty. It's meaning what you say, saying what you mean. It's being who you are. I mean, in a nutshell, it's saying whatever comes into your head.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, I struggle with, so like I need to be able to be who I am, and I struggle with people that I expect to see negatives from everybody. If I can't find one, you're being fake.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
And that's really what it is for me. If I can never see some kind of negative reaction or emotion or anything, and you're just putting on this perfect image, then you're fake.
Yeah,
pretty much.
And I kind of like, I'm not, no offense, I kind of see FI users do this thing where they try to present themselves in the most perfect way. I'm sure not all of you do it, but I've seen FI users do it, where they present the perfect image of their perfect ideal to the world. And then if I know them well enough, I'm seeing the background them and I'm seeing the front facing them, and I'm going, you're fake. Because if I'm in public, no one in public can see who you really are in the background. Ergo, it's like they would hear something about, it's like a specific, if I use this in my brain right now, they would hear something and go, no way, that person can't be like that. Whereas for like me, that I never got that reaction from anyone. It's like, oh, so Mara did this, and they were like, okay, that makes sense. Because I, for the most part, am going to be me in public. So you're going to see me get angry. You're going to see me I'm going to have reactions and not just like mask it all and try to be this ideal self.
Interesting. I'm wondering if that's like
interesting.
Yeah, I mean, like, I could maybe see that in like lower stack FI people, even ENFPs, but not saying that's like INFPs couldn't be that way or ISFPs, but that seems, I have not encountered personally IFPs being that way, although obviously it's totally possible.
I also don't think they're always aware that they're doing it when they're doing it.
That could definitely be it.
So,
oh yeah, definitely.
I think I relate to what you're saying in the sense of like, you can ask 4 different groups that I'm associated with, and like including my family, and they'll all give you a general like perception of me, kind of, but at the same time, certain groups will be like, oh, she did that, or oh, she did that, or like she said that, or whatever. So I can kind of see that. I kind of, in a sense, I could see how I put on for different groups.
I'm obviously not saying that people don't have different facets to themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
Saying that's obviously the case.
It might be because like or it could be the idealism thing that makes sense, but also I could also seeing it be like we don't trust people very easily because we're so like sensitive. So we will maybe put on a certain facade until we really get to know you, and then we will like open up more.
Yeah, I do feel like ISTPs, well, really ITPs in general are extremely consistent. Like what you see is what you get. I kind of understand what you're saying. Where I feel like
not that I'm running around completely uncontrolled, but I mean, that's obviously not the case. But I will usually give someone a fairly genuine reaction in the moment if I have one to give.
Right.
Yeah.
Inferior Fe, there isn't always a reaction, but
yeah, like because we're always questioning like who we are and oh, did that represent who I am and all this other stuff, and y'all don't really think like that.
No, we don't.
Yeah, so I can kind of understand why IFPs can maybe have more, and I'm not saying this in a good or bad way, but like more layers, I guess. ITPs kind of like what you see is what you get.
Yeah, I think that might be it, the layers thing.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I've had my moments where it gets like, I have like these super severe, like, who am I? Am I even real? What is going on? Like,
Yeah.
I think our identities can also, I think what doesn't change is our values. Like those stay pretty consistent, but our identity, we're always kind of playing around with it. And so we're always trying to like, because we're the goal is to try and become the truest version of ourselves. So like, I think we're like our extroverted perception is playing around with different identities in a different way, in different ways. So like we're, and maybe it might be a subconscious testing too. Like, let me present this identity and see how people react to it, type thing.
Yep. That
Yeah,
sounds right.
That's fascinating. And so let's explore that a little further. How do the TI DOMs play with their identity, and how do the FI DOMs play with their identity?
I think I like present ideas and viewpoints to people kind of, and they may not really be something that I believe, but like I'll kind of present it as such, or I don't know, or like I'll see how people might react to like something. I don't know. For me, it's not. I don't know if it's really playing around with my identity, though. I guess I'm kind of getting out of the bounds of identity now.
Yeah, I'm kind of with him on that.
So I was thinking about this article on Mara's website where she talks about like, I'm sorry if I'm butchering this, So you talked about how TI, how it plays around with its identity is that it will try on different thoughts, like what Spacey just said. It'll
Right.
go like, it'll present something like it really believes it, but it's really trying it on to see people's reactions so it can keep going through thoughts.
It's testing out logic, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not traditionally what we'd associate with identity.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we hear that word and go, that's not really what that is. But our identity is more wrapped up in the logic.
I guess our thoughts kind of are our identities in a very anti-Buddhist manner.
Yeah, I know that is a distinction between FI and TI users in general. Is like people who use TI feel like their thoughts are their identity, or like whatever, and we feel like we are who we are, and we just think what we think, but our thoughts aren't our identity. Ourselves are our identity, and we just happen to have thoughts that might be consistent with who we feel like we are. So yeah.
Yeah, it's like for me, it's like it doesn't even matter who I am as long as my thoughts are in order.
Yeah, I don't get that.
Yeah.
Right? I got it straight. It doesn't matter what's going on. Yeah.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
That is so strange, Spacey. That is so strange to me.
Wait, so what
I'm sorry, I forgot your question.
How does FI do identity?
Oh. Yeah, I mean, we just are who we are. And
what do you guys
think
test out?
like everything that we do and everything that we say, everyone we associate with is an extension of our identity and who we are and how we present ourselves to the world. So like people always talk about, how sensitive FI users are because everything is an extension of ourselves. If I see Denzel adding salt to the meal that I just prepared to him, oh, so you're trying to say I can't
Right. Okay, yeah.
Like,
well, everything's personal, basically.
Everything.
Yeah.
Even ideas and theories.
Yes.
Like, like that's why I was so probably IFP / very 4 about this. I remember in undergrad, I was a history major, and for my senior thesis class, I had to submit a rough draft of a senior thesis paper that I wrote. And my history professor, I got the paper back, and there was like red all over the paper, and like every page, and it looked like red ink had spilled all over my paper.
Yes.
And I remember that day on Facebook, I went on and I put on a Facebook status, I have failed as a historian. Like I was so, just dramatic, for dramatic. Like I'm, I failed, like all of that criticism says something about me and my intellect and my ideas. It was very, very devastating.
I used to do this like text-based role-playing with a couple of friends. It's like where we'd each play a character within a plot and all that. There was an INFP, and he was a bit immature, but he was immature. But it's like he would make these characters, and every time like my character would insult his character, obviously within this writing plot type thing, it was like I was insulting him.
Yeah.
For me, it was the most frustrating thing because my characters were completely detached from me, and they were kind of acting of their own accord, in a sense. It was like they became their own person, and they were just doing what they did. I had no control over them because I was just being them. But, so they would go do something to his character, and he would take it very personally. And finally, we just couldn't do it with him anymore. It's like, we just walked away. But he was obviously very immature INFP. But.
Yeah, like that can happen when we're younger. We don't know how to like set proper boundaries between ourselves and some of our actions or ideas.
Okay, this is incredibly fascinating. So I'm wondering if FI users see everything as an extension of themselves that they do, then I'm wondering, do you guys personify things a lot? Like, let's say like you have an inanimate object. Are you guys more likely to like say sorry to it, to treat it like a person?
She has a name. Her name is India. Because
Ari?
no, just India.
Oh, okay.
Wait, what'd you say?
India Ari, that's us.
Yes, because my favorite artist is India Ari. And so when I got my guitar, I named it after her.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've always like if I bump into something, I accidentally be like, oh, sorry. I stopped doing that because I'm like, why do I keep saying sorry to doorknobs? Like, also, I mean, like, I feel like there is FI users have a special relationships with animals, so there's that.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there's just a connection.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That reminds me of something I saw about FI being biotic and TI being abiotic. And it brings me back to my metaphor about how if we kind of grow out of the world or out of the universe like fruit grows out of a tree, then the FI users are way more conscious of the roots that are connecting them to everything else.
Yeah. Right. I think that I think that's why like FI DOMs are described as like very like earthy kind of, sprites, or, forest fae. We have like a very special connection to like nature. And I think that's also why like even though like FI is about like the individual or the subject, but we also like also have like a connection to all of humanity. What's really interesting is I don't know where I read this, but I think maybe it was Jung saying that like because FI like can understand like how its own psyche works, and we kind of extrapolate that and like we extend that to all of humanity, and so we can really understand how all of humanity works. And I think there's a really interesting analog to that. One of my ENFP friends, she was going through a master's in therapy program, and what they told her was how they trained all therapists. They essentially trained them in FI. They said, you need to like understand like every single aspect of yourself and have like ultra self-awareness, because it's only then will you be able to understand your clients and your patients and pick up on those patterns. And I thought that was like a really great like explanation of like how the therapist didn't mean it as FI, but I think that is a really great understanding of how FI works and how we can really, that's how we become really good judges of character with people, and how we can like understand people on a very deep level.
Yeah. FI is good at inferring souls. So it's like you can take your own soul and you can infer it onto other things. And so you can feel what they're feeling through that. Yeah. So with the TI DOMs, I was wondering, what's your relationship with inanimate objects? Do you guys ever see yourself as an extension of something else, or does that make sense? So what is your relationship with the topics that we were talking about?
I do see myself as an extension of things, but to me, it's stuck in my head as something I visualized a while back when I was in a very weird frame of mind. But basically, it's all just like a crystalline, three-dimensional spider web pattern of cause and effect of like everything that's ever happened, and it's all interconnected and then refracted like a crystal with like light going into it, like a kaleidoscope, and then it's all, I don't know.
That's cool.
But basically, I could kind of see like, okay, this only happened because I was there on Tuesday, and I was only there on Tuesday because of this other thing that happened, and then I was just like all the way back to like the dawn of time, you know.
And so how does that relate to something?
Well, I can feel how I fit into the
cosmos.
The cosmos or the grand drama that is, you know, the world.
That's really interesting because I feel like you're thinking about it backwards. Because I see how things are connected to me, but you're talking about how you see yourself as a part of a larger system.
Yeah.
Right. FETI versus FITE.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. there was one time I was talking with Heidi Parib, and I was like telling this group of people about how we're all impacted by this larger system, and she's like, "That's so FETI," because she's like, "That's how I wouldn't see anything like that." Joyce, she was telling me about how like the FI user is more likely to talk about things in relation to like their experience, but she's like, "But Joyce, you're zooming out so much." It's like, oh,
Right.
and I'm interested. I was interested because I was like, wait, not everyone does this.
To me, things are, well, for like we're saying, for TI, things are not so personal. So like when it comes to people that I care about, and when it comes to animals, I actually, you know, I'll show quite a lot of empathy, and like I love animals and animals like me. But like inanimate objects, like I don't care. Like I literally buy durable things just so I can smack them around and they won't break. You know, I couldn't really care less. And honestly, I ironically, I don't get too attached to how people feel, because I feel like it's actually easier for me to think clearly in ways that will ultimately benefit others, if I ignore their momentary feelings.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I generally agree with that. I mean, inanimate objects are objects. And I mean, yeah, I don't necessarily know if I view things as extensions of myself, typically. And there are certain things that I guess are more personal to me, but
you know, I definitely want to feel detached in spirit, right? So I can watch everything that's going on, right, without having to participate.
Yeah, the idea is to stay detached.
Yeah.
But that is the idea.
I think there are certain benefits to that. I have been trying to be more detached in certain ways, because like when I get too personally involved, it actually becomes really unhealthy for me. It like actually like hurts me like emotionally. It's like emotionally unhealthy. So I'm, you know, through therapy, I'm trying to learn how to detach in the right way, in the right situations, just to protect my own heart. But I've noticed, like I've noticed with TI DOMs in particular, that about this kind of like systems, and we all kind of like fit into it, and this detachment from it. Sometimes that can frustrate me, because I feel some ITPs say, "Oh, well, you know, it's out of my control. I'm just a cog in the wheel. I'm you know, in the system." I have a friend. He's an ENTP, but I have a friend who, you know, he's super into astrology, and if he's having a bad day, like, oh, today was you know, Venus rising moon, so you know, that means I'm gonna be pissed for the next 3 days, and it's like, what? Like, no, like you're like, and so like I think that, you know, in either extreme of like taking things too personally, being too detached, obviously can be really bad and unhealthy, and the other extreme being too detached, then there can be some real consequences to like not taking responsibility for your actions, and sometimes that like really frustrates me with some FETI users. It's like, you know, like, oh, but I had no control over it, you know, and it's like, you do have control.
Oh,
yeah, there's obviously a negative to each side, because the TI DOMs are more prone to maybe complacency. Is that the right word for that? Whereas just you're too detached and you just don't care anymore.
Right.
This apathy. Like
right.
one thing I noticed with, you get the mistake the FI DOMs, the jaded FI DOMs will make, thinking they're thinkers. Because they think, well, I'm not, you know, you get the idealized like descriptions with the FIs being the nice and they're always very positive, et cetera, et
Right.
cetera. But then they get jaded and they suddenly think they're thinkers. Whereas
Right.
someone like me, as a TI dom, I'm reading this, I'm going, I do not see like what you're saying or what I'm seeing you write or whatever it is. I'm not seeing the detachment I should see, because negative emotion is not the same thing as being a thinker.
Yeah.
Right.
You can be a feeler and have both positive and negative emotion spectrum, but as a TI dominant with the inferior FE, I'm looking for a detachment from that emotion.
Right.
Versus an extreme on either side. Now, obviously, like you said, the one if they have that inferior FE, you'll sometimes see them go into that real extreme negative emotion. That will happen,
Right.
occasionally, but for the most part, it should be a detachment.
Right. Yeah. And it's that detachment of like responsibility. Sometimes that's, that can be frustrating. Like, I have no control over my actions. I'm just part of the system. And that can be frustrating.
I'm sorry. I was just gonna say, I almost wonder if that's like an Enneagram thing, maybe with that person. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I wanted to say at least with regards to emotion, especially for an ETP and I guess for ITPs as well, it's very comforting when you already find it hard enough to kind of recognize and understand your emotional reactions to things. It's very comforting to just be able to go, oh yeah, I have no control over it.
Right,
it is uncontrollable, right? I don't have to try. Yeah, so I think it's probably just more of a comfort thing.
Yeah, I can see.
I don't want to dip into this, but I don't want to care.
Yeah.
Right, because you guys are probably aware that at least on some level that like it would be extremely like uncomfortable like going there.
Yeah.
It's like the Pandora's box.
Yeah, because
shut it, lock it, leave it alone.
Right, maybe because you guys are all too aware of like how deeply like the emotions you have like are that you're just like they're gonna keep because it'll be a Pandora's box. It'll all just come flooding out, and you won't know what to do with it.
No, and it will change the way that I think, and it will make me do stupid things, and
Right.
we know all of that. Like,
right. Okay, that makes total sense. I think because like we do, like IFPs delve into those places more. Like we can not always, but we maybe better can like know how to handle those kinds of like feelings more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent chat, everyone. And so, interesting point, Mara, like where you mentioned jaded FI DOMs will think that they're TI DOMs. That happens a lot, especially with male FI DOMs think that they're TI DOMs a lot often. So that's an interesting mistype to be aware of. I really like the clarity that you all bring about how like FI is more personal and attached analysis, whereas TI is more impersonal, detached analysis. So they're like both analysis, but one is more impersonal and one is more personal form of analysis done internally. So yeah, very, very interesting chat. Any final thoughts before we end the panel?
I wanted to delve into like the similarities between IMPs and their differences with ISPs. Like we haven't touched on that. I think that's actually a really interesting difference.
Well, before we get into that, I just want to say, Cristian, I thought you said India. I thought you said India Marie.
Oh.
I was like, no. So that's why I was like, no.
You're good. I guess with myself and INTPs, like I tend to really connect with them on maybe like our interest in like subjects and stuff like that. We can talk for hours and hours about a lot of conceptual like abstract stuff. And so like I think that's something that I've noticed. Also, like I feel like our JI-SI loops can be fairly similar. So those are, I guess, just off the top of my head, some of the similarities that I've noticed with at least with other IMPs.
I mean, I've noticed that INPs are definitely more like verbose and prone to like
Oh, yeah.
monologuing.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen it play out pretty much the same way I always visualize it, with the ISPs being like the least talkative types, and the ISTP in particular being the least talkative.
Who like, I'm curious, like, who all of you guys relate to more. Like, do you relate more to the type that shares the same dominant function, or do you relate more to the type that shares your inner functions?
It probably depends on context.
Yeah, it does.
Because TI in my brain is very much a language. So if I'm talking to any TI user, it doesn't necessarily matter if they're NE or SE. It's just a language, and I understand what they're saying very easily. Whereas other people don't always, and they're like say Ryan will be like, what did that person just say? Like, oh,
right.
Even though I'm not NE, I could trace the TI exactly. Right. But then at the same time, I'm not very. People do make the mistake that the IXSEs or the SEs in general, or the sensors, if I even broaden that, aren't very abstract. And that's not necessarily true, but it has to be abstraction with purpose, with something you can apply.
Oh, that's a good distinction.
There's a lot of, especially like IXSEs, who will think they're at the IXNE type. I see that a lot with some of these INTPs. I'm like, well, that's an ISTP. And I'll see that same thing with INFPs. That one's actually an ISFP. Because they think, well, I can be abstract. I must be an intuitive. Well, that's not true. You have the IXSE like me. I have to be able to apply the theory that I'm talking about. If there's no application, I have no interest in it whatsoever. And that's the difference. I can talk about typology just fine. I can get all into that.
Right.
But I see a value in it. And I can see a way to apply it.
Okay.
But if you pull some random thing on me, then I'm like, why are we talking about this?
So like maybe like
qualifier.
Okay, that is actually extremely helpful. Thank you for that. Maybe something like I don't know. I'm thinking like metaphysics doesn't have a real practical application, so maybe that might not be. Maybe right,
exactly.
It really
no, metaphysics is for us.
Right.
That's why I would say that I guess the INPs or the ISPs might generally be able to like hang out more easily with more fun. I don't know. Like I can imagine being able to like work really well with Mara. I don't know if we'd share like tons of interests or like have tons of fun together or whatever. You know, I know with you we've had some good conversations.
Yeah, no, like I for me I felt an immediate like connection, like a what's the word I'm looking for? Like an easy, like a facility in just just being able to kind of like just riff on each other's ideas, I guess. Not that I relate obviously in a lot of things with Jamila with the FI stuff, but maybe that's the difference. Is like it's like the language is similar for JI DOMs who they share the same dominant function, but maybe like the interest and other stuff, like it's the opposite.
Yeah, you'll notice with the ISPs, like the ISTP and the ISFP, their interests will be more like with a purpose. They'll have like what Mara was saying, it'll have like an end purpose, like you can use it in the world or something. There's some sort of ends that you can apply it to.
It's like grounded.
Yes, grounded. Whereas the INFP and the INTP, they can learn something that might not have an end. So
right,
yeah,
like,
I usually see the NEs get all excited about something, and I'm over here like, why do I care about this? Like, they're not trying to be mean, but they're all excited about the cool thing, and I'm like,
this happened with my friend. Not that he's not interested, because he's like really interested in like philosophical topics, but I was going to lend him a book on a political philosophy. It's very like kind of abstract, and it even has like symbolic logic in it, and I was like all jazzed about it. I was like, yeah, like this is like the foundation of this political philosophy that I'm really interested in, that I know that, you know, you said you wanted to learn more about. Like, here's this book, like you should totally read it. And he was like, is there like a YouTube video or something that can like explain this? Like, because like
Actually,
I was like,
devil's advocate that, but I hate watching YouTube videos. I hate
yeah.
it. I cannot pay attention for that long. Most of what I hear goes in one ear and out the other. I have to read it.
Yeah, I think
any hope of remembering it.
I think it depends on like the medium depends on the individual person, but I think the basic idea was like it was not a book about like, okay, let's talk about this philosophy and how it's practically applied in the real world. It's literally like a foundational, like, let's build up the philosophy and just talk about it for its own sake, and and doesn't really have to have a practical application.
Mm-hmm.
So I was explaining that to him. He's like, better not. So that makes sense.
Yeah. What I find with the NE users is that they're way more about researching and consuming a lot of information.
Oh yeah,
like
that's my
from random
favorite.
things. They go in a lot of rabbit holes, or I don't know what to call it, like
rabbit
like
holes,
a lot of information to really strange niche topics that
gosh
is
like
fancying them at that moment.
like the hyperlinks in Wikipedia articles are like my Achilles heel, because it's like I'm reading and then there's a hyperlink to something, I'm like, never heard of that, click, you know, or alt tab or control tab, and then read that, oh, I've never heard of that, control tab, you know, and it's like, you know, and it's just like, yeah, I love them though, they're exhilarating.
Yeah, it's super interesting. That's super interesting. So any closing thoughts, guys, before we end the panel?
I love INFPs. They don't always love me because I'm cold as ice.
No, I really like you.
Yeah.
And I wish that you lived closer so we could
hang out
and just have a great old time.
Honestly, I hung out with an ISFP in college, and that was fun too. We vibed more than I expected to. It was a good time.
Like I said, I really don't know any INTPs, but my brother is an ISTP and my sister's an INFP.
Ooh.
And it's really interesting because growing up, I was super close with my brother. Like, we were like this, and we're 10 years apart, but we were still super, super close. But now I'm really close with my INFP sister.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, and I think it's for a couple reasons. I think one, because she's also kind of significantly older than me. And so when she was a teenager, she was going through her INFP angsty teenager phase, and she was into everything and everybody. But now, like, we're both adults and everything. And I think that us being away, since her perceiving function isn't experiential, then we're almost forced to connect another way. Whereas we did connect, you know, I don't know, just normally, I guess.
Right.
But we also had a lot of fun together because we had a lot of, you know, SE interests that were the same. But now we can't really do that because we're not living with or by each other anymore. And so we don't talk as much anymore either, and obviously a whole bunch of other things. But now me and my sister, we really connect with like our feelings and stuff. And recently I became really close with an INFP. So I feel like at this stage in my life, I'm closer to INFPs than I am to ISTPs. I think we just really vibe when they're like feeling thing and like talking about that and stuff.
I need more ISTPs around.
Yeah, I don't know anybody.
They're hard to find.
That is so funny.
Well, sometimes they hide with the INTPs, just saying. But
yeah, sometimes.
True.
Yeah.
I mean, they can't hide around me. I tell you that.
Yeah, definitely not you.
Yeah. That's why like I keep Mara close because I'm like, yes, ISTPs, I love them dearly with all my heart.
The
Okay,
ISTPs are so cool.
Yeah, you guys are in the same quadra. You and
Yeah, and she's like, yeah, whatever, Joyce. I don't even care.
So yeah, any final thoughts before we end the panel?
I think there's a lot in common, even though like we might have like we connect with each other on different axes. So like I'll connect with Spacey or Steve on the NESI, and then I'll connect with Jamila on FITE. But overall, I think there's just a general we have a general philosophical orientation to a lot of similar principles and values. I think they might be arrived at a different way, but in general, they're very similar. So I think I can for me there's kind of an immediate there's a sense of I get you, I would probably even say that I love ENFPs, for example. They're fantastic and wonderful. But their NE is so much for me. I think there's more of a connection with IPs because of we're at a kind of a similar level as far as energy and just kind of how we view the world. Even though I share I share the exact same functions and almost exactly the same order with ENFPs, but there's a comforting feeling, I guess, when I'm around other IPs. So I don't know. That's just my experience. Although I love ENFPs, they're fantastic and wonderful, and they push me to get out of my shell more and to be a little bit more silly. ENTPs too. I just there's a feeling with IPs that
Yeah. There's definitely that IP camaraderie. There's that IP connection for sure. And yeah, to back up the point that NPs, so INTPs and INFPs tend to be like Spacey said, or I've said this in the past videos too, is that NPs tend to be verbose.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see that whenever I ask, do you guys have any more questions? It's always the NP jumping in going yeah, I have more to say. NE always has more to say. So yeah, here's some takeaways for the audience to take away if you guys wanted some takeaway points. IP types share a lot in common. Common mistypes is that there's an intuitive bias in the community. So ISTPs and ISFPs are likely to mistype as the intuitive version of their type. So ISTPs sometimes think they're INTPs, and ISFPs sometimes think they're INFPs. So that's something to watch out for. But there are certain tells, like we were talking about during this chat. FI DOMs tend to have more personal analysis approach, whereas TI DOMs have a more impersonal analysis approach. And a way to tell apart the NPs from the SPs is that the NPs, the things that they learn will not always have an NI purpose to them, and they can still get excited about it. Whereas the SPs need some sort of purpose to it to feel like it's doing something. So that's a small tell between these types. So those are just a few small takeaways from the chat. Thank you everyone for coming out. I appreciate all of you, and you all add something to my life by being in it. And so, thank you, Jamila, for your amazing angelic voice. I always tell you, it moves me, it moves it moves anyone who listens to your voice, because you just jam pack all that emotion into it. People can tell your genuineness and your authenticity through the vocal tracks that you give to the world, and it really blesses us, because you teach us how to feel more deeply and more complexly with every note that you sing. Yeah, and I like your chill acceptance of life. Like when you talk, it feels so like I feel relaxed. Like I'm a type 6 in the Enneagram, but I feel like I feel less anxious and fearful around you.
Good. He's not giving us a spirit of fear, okay?
Yeah. You give me a spirit of relaxation and good vibes. Yeah, so keep on singing and keep on being you. Cristian, thank you for your just scholarly research on type. Like I know like you come into these chats like prepared to get great wisdom insights, and I'm like, yeah, Cristian's really been studying this up. Like he knows what he's talking about. Like he has like his own PhD in typology. I know you're getting a PhD in something else, but you know, it kind of feels like you're very plentiful and well researched in the field of type, and it's nice to have you here. And yeah, you bring a lot of like whimsical joy to the chat. And yeah, and yeah, Mara. So I love your website, and I like you as a person too, Mara. You know, I appreciate your articles. I read like all of your articles, Mara. I'm your number one fan. I admire your TI. You know, my third slot TI is like, wow, I just really admire Mara's first slot TI. And so I just enjoy reading your stuff. And you know that I think your articles are really well written because you go back and you edit them whenever you find a way that they could be better. And I really appreciate your TI for that because it strives for like the most accurate articles. And I value that in a typology resource. So yeah, thank you for being the typology resource that the world needs, Mara. and Spacey. I like how you'll give like these sharp TI insights. Like someone will say something, and you'll say like, so it's this. And you'll just like sum it up in a TI accurate statement. And I'm like, yeah, you just save the viewers like time, you know? So like, yeah, you say it in a really like like you'll get the point correctly. So you'll like someone will say something and then you'll scrap the fluff and you'll get to like so this is the organized thought that it brings you to. And I'm like, yeah, Spacey, that's correct. Yeah, so you hit us with your TI truths. So thank you for that TI intellectual honesty that you bring to people, and that you help provide the world. And yeah, like whenever you hear like you have the best BS detector, and it helps make the world more truthful and consistent with its logic. So yeah, thank you for refining the TI of the world. So yeah, I appreciate all of you. You're all like friends to me. Like yeah.
Same.
Yeah. And friendship makes the world go round. And so thank you for making my world go round. And thank you, audience members, for tuning in. You're fantastic. And I'll see you all in the next episode. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Sunday morning, rain is falling. Still some coffee sheds our skin. Clouds are shrouding us in moments unforgettable. You twist to fit the mold that I am in. Oh.